Sound check. Haha, all right. There we go. Multiple devices for the win. Yeah, indeed. Third time is a charm. Okay. Well, I'm just going to dive right in, and whoever shows up can listen, or I will dutifully edit out the first like 30 seconds of this once I get it to completion here. But so why am I having a stream? And to answer the question that's in the thumbnail and the title of the stream, shouldn't I be in the garage? Probably so. But what has happened is the next phase of the work that I'm doing on the NSX has kind of gotten a little more fiddly. It got complicated. So the next step is to put the water pump on. I have everything I need to do that now. Thanks again to, at least in part, to ATR, which I now know that I've been saying that name kind of redundantly, although I think Christian, the owner, also uses this. But I've been saying ATR Racing, but really it's ATR stands for Austrian Type Racing. That's, again, the kind folks who have been sponsoring my NSX maintenance series now. It's NSX-parts.com if anyone is interested in going to checking them out. They have a lot of OE parts that are sometimes hard to find, and he also does custom carbon fiber stuff as well. He races an actual NSX in, I think, some various time attacks or time attack series around Europe. So good times there. But the next step that I have is putting the water pump back on. Once I put the water pump back on, before I do anything else, I want to pressure test the coolant system. But to do that, I need to reconnect a few things that I currently have disconnected. I need to put the throttle body back on. I need to reconnect the oil filter pedestal and get those hoses back connected. And then that should close the loop on the coolant system, although it won't have coolant in it. And then I can put a pressure tester. Oh, I have to put the expansion tank back on as well. After which I'd be able to put the pressure tester on the expansion tank, pressurize the system, leave it overnight or however long, and make sure that it's holding pressure and thus doesn't have any leaks. Because the worst possible scenario, which has happened to one of our sort of mechanical wizards in the NSX community, which is why I'm doing this, would be to reassemble the whole car, put coolant in it, bleed it all out, fire it up the first time, and find a puddle under the car the next morning under the water pump. Hello? And then have to redo the entire job again. That would be the absolute worst case scenario, and is what I'm trying to avoid by pressure testing the system before I proceed. So that is why I am not in the garage, but probably should be. So, that's kind of where I didn't want to leave everybody hanging, though. And I've been getting things out pretty regularly on Tuesday. That's usually the day that I publish a video. But I figured, hey, maybe we'll try something different this time. We'll do a live stream, which has met with mixed success. It is currently live after probably 20 minutes of trying to figure out why YouTube was making me do things this way and that way. And then I finally gave up on using the, because originally I was trying to use the YouTube interface to just do this from my webcam through the browser and YouTube, through YouTube's UI. But I've kind of punted on that for this. The stream you're actually watching is gone through OBS. And that then OBS is piping it into YouTube, and YouTube is displaying it for all to see. But that is what we were doing. So if you have any questions, I'm planning on doing a kind of, general Q&A. So just throw stuff in the chat as you think of it, and I will get to it. I don't expect that we're going to have a huge crowd today, being this is my first live stream. So probably anything would be fair game. But I've got three general topics I'm going to cover really quick, and then we'll get to questions. So you got a little time. So I guess the couple of questions, I've kind of given the update on the NSX as far as where that is. So next steps, reassemble some stuff, pressure test coolant system, then continue with the reassembly, assuming that all checks out. The other, let's see here, other updates. Where is the, I have two cars. Where is the Gallardo? Well, it is kind of also waiting on parts at this point for reasons that I will get into. I won't spoiler too much, but I have a little bit more exhaust work to do on that car before I'm going to be comfortable kind of driving it around, because I was getting I had suspicions of an issue that is apparently common on those cars. Not well, it's one that is potentially catastrophic, but I don't think mine is catastrophic at this point. I'm just trying to get ahead of it. So that will be forthcoming. I've sent, I guess I've sent an update because I'm having to wait on parts to come in from somewhere in like Eastern Europe. So I could use a beer now, but I think we just ran out. We haven't gone to the store again, so I'm kind of SOL there, I guess. But um, so yeah, so waiting on some parts to come in for the Gallardo, but otherwise it's nothing else is kind of amiss with it at all, as far as I know. I've just been not trying to not drive it around too much right now until I eliminate the possibility for failure in this particular instance, I guess. Probably the best thing to do. So also, what happened to the Track of the Week series that I was had gone a few weeks doing? Well, that is still there. I've actually gotten some pretty cool information and have some other collaborations in the works there, I think, that will be interesting once that resumes. It was just an issue of logistically, I wasn't going to be able to commit the time doing the research, putting together the videos, and working with the people that I needed to work with, while at the same time DIYing the major service on the NSX. So, Track of the Week will be back in probably a few weeks, but and hopefully with some interesting follow-ups as well as new stuff to go there. I've got a couple of tracks in particular that have either sort of sounds like clickbait but isn't, kind of headlines to them, that I think should be fun stories to tell. Also, kind of along those same lines, I guess, what are my plans this year? I know I've had a few people ask, just kind of looking back through comments, what's the next track you're going to is always the question. Right now, I don't know. My general MO is that I want to have a car that will 100% make it to the track before I go sign up for events. I know I could sign up for events and that would give me a deadline, but given how parts availability has been, I don't want to roll those dice. So I suspect what's going to happen, I'll get the NSX back together. I'll probably go and see if I can hit up a local or easy to get to regional autocross as kind of a shakedown. Once all goes well there, having had the car mostly apart and then putting it back together, or a lot more of the vital bits apart and back together, I want to make sure everything is as it should be before I go and commit to an event that could be 6-8 hours away out of state. As far as tracks that I want to get to this year, it's a good question. So my plan, good old 2020. So my plan last year actually was to go and do a bunch of Northeast tracks over the summer, because it's a nice time to visit up there. My family and I actually used to go up to a big Italian car show / track event in the Poconos at Pocono. We did that event for like 20 something years, and it was always a nice break from the humidity, because we'd go up in June, July, or something like that, and spend a little, probably long week, I guess, in up in the Pocono Mountains, and it was always, you drop 15 degrees and about probably 70% less humidity. So you get in the car to come back home and shut the door in Pennsylvania, open the door in Tennessee, and it sounded like you were opening a Coke can or something. But that's so that's my plan again this year, is to try and see if I can get up to some of the northeastern tracks over the summer, assuming travel restrictions are you know, assuming it's feasible to do with travel restrictions, obviously. I had been looking at like Watkins Glen last year about the time that New York said, nope, none of you filthy Southerners are allowed in our state. Understandable pandemic. I'm not, we've been taking it very seriously, but this year is kind of like let's try it again. So maybe getting up to Watkins Glen or, uh, you know, I don't think those are the same place. Palmer and Thompson and even like New Hampshire Motor Speedway because it's kind of got an interesting configuration that's not maybe unique now with where part of the road it's a kind of a roval, but part of the roval goes outside of the oval. I know Texas World Speedway was like that, but Texas World Speedway doesn't look like it's going to be uh, open again anytime soon. I think it's maybe elevated from car graveyard to like probably going to be residential now, which is unfortunate. But yeah, no, yeah, Watkins Glen, New Jersey, and yeah, in New York Safety Track entertains me. It's kind of one of those little more obscure tracks. Like if you're not in the region, you probably haven't heard of it. Unless you're a nerd like me and made a map of every road course in the world, that's not one that would probably be on the radar. So that means it's entertaining to me because if it's not on the radar, then not many people know about it, and I'm entertained with sharing kind of the new or not necessarily evident in pop culture places that I go. So that'll be kind of a fun one for me. The one that I do have earmarked, and I have to go look at their calendar again. I could probably pull it up, but I'm not going to make you watch me type. Um, I know that Chin Motorsports has dates at Indianapolis to run I think something that approximates the Formula One configuration when they ran there. But I'd love to do Indy, and then if I could get to like Coda, yeah, like because if you think about that, like Indy, Coda, and Watkins Glen, I think outside of random street circuits places, I think those are the only people are going to skewer me for this, but those may be the only tracks in the U.S. that have hosted Formula One. And I'm not a huge Formula One, like, I don't intensely follow it right now. I have before in the past. I think, I don't know when I sort of stopped. Well, I don't know. Probably not having cable TV for a long stretch didn't help my following F1, and that I'm not much of a morning person as far as when the races come on. Like I keep track of who's where and what's what, but I'm not a super fan at the moment. But can't appreciate that, like, the significance of having those races in the States from time to time. So yeah, that's kind of on the list there. Those tracks. And then there's some other kind of regional ones that I'm ashamed that I haven't gotten to, like Mid Ohio. Like everybody loves Mid Ohio. I haven't been there. I mean, I've been to the track as like a 10-year-old, I think, with my dad back in the day, but I have not been there and on or around the track. And certainly haven't driven it. So that's kind of one that I would like to get to regionally. Several more tracks in Florida that I haven't been to, kind of as far as the Southeast is concerned, and then obviously later this year, all things going to plan, we're going to try and get out to Oregon to do with NS Expo 20, what was going to be NS Expo 2020, now NS Expo 2021, which is Oregon Raceway Park. I think that's the name acronym. It's not not Portland International, but it's one of the other kind of tracks in the region there. It looks technical and fun. Kind of reminds me a little bit of High Plains, which was our local track when we lived in Colorado. But so let's see here. Let me get to like a couple of other questions. I went back and kind of fished through comments in case we had a small or quiet crowd here, but. Oh, thanks, Jerry. No date yet for Chin and Indy. I know they had that on the books last year, but had to reschedule for obvious reasons. Actually, they didn't have a reschedule because of any lockdown. They had to reschedule because they were going to run, I think, post lockdown, but they needed the track needed the date back for an actual race that had been rescheduled because of lockdown. So indirectly, it's the usual cause. But so am I going to do? I have, let's see here, questions that I've gotten from the comments in the past few videos here. Start with some track questions since we're kind of on that topic. Am I going to do any more abandoned tracks soon? Probably my biggest video to date, oddly enough, was one of the tracks that I visited that I could not drive. That was Augusta International Speedway, which is kind of one of those tracks that nobody knew about. And it's funny because since I did that in 2018, the Dale Jr.'s, what was it called? The series he did, I think it was like Lost Speedways or something like that. They went and visited the track. And of course, they were talking about it mainly from a NASCAR history standpoint, which is, I mean, that's it's a big thing. And the track was always funny to me because it felt like a little bit of a hybrid. It was it's a road course, 100% a road course layout, but most of the turns there are significantly on camber to the point of probably being, most would call them banked. So it's almost like this weird, the missing link. It's got left and right turns, but they're banked. So it's like the hybrid between a flat road course and a high banked oval. Anyway, I have a few more that I'm not going to disclose too much, but there are a handful more in the region that were either built and abandoned or aborted in a state of partial completion that I think would be interesting if I can get to them and get permission to get onto the properties. Because unlike the Augusta International, these have not been turned into like public parks yet. So there's still some permissions to be granted there. Let's see here. I've done a couple of a small handful of videos, I guess, on tracks that are upcoming in North America, where I've had, I've either did a little bit of research and made the first one that was 6 tracks that are coming soon, and then from that I got leads on like 5 more, so I did a second follow-up to that. Which one of those am I most excited about? What's the one that's local to where I live, Oak Ridge Motorsports Park. So last I checked, they've just gotten through with yet another round of approvals and approvals and votes with Oak Ridge and Anderson County, I think, where they're located. Now I think they are working with the Department of Energy, the DOE, for easements, because this kind of is adjacent to the old K-25. So if you're a World War II history nerd, this is where they did a lot of the uranium enrichment, for one of those first 2 atomic weapons back in the 40s. And that site was a mess. This is not on that site. There was actually a track proposed on that site, but I think it ended up being, once they started demolishing, it was too dirty that they were ever going to be able to build on that. So this is not on that site, but it is kind of nearby, and it's on land. It intertwines amidst land that DOE still owns. So they're working on some permissions and easements there. So yeah, dirty. Who's dirty? No, so that was probably the one I'm most excited about. They've got that, for better or worse, it's kind of, they've got it, they've worked with Tilka to design the grounds and stuff. And I may try and do some more with that track specifically as it gets further along in the process, because I am local to it. I think that would be kind of a neat look behind the scenes. I've also been talking to a couple of other, or at least one other track that's kind of approaching opening day, about doing some again, kind of like, how do you go from farm to, farm to formula cars in on a piece of land in any given area. But I don't know if that's going to be a real thing or not, but some ideas there. Let's see here. Oh, someone else asked, I I don't remember which video this was on, but do I have any tracks? Do I have any recommended tracks in the southeast region, southeastern United States region, that I'd recommend for beginners? Yes. I would say of the ones that I've been to so far, with that kind of caveat there, there's a tiny track just outside of Anniston, Alabama called Talladega Grand Prix Raceway, aka Little Talladega. No affiliation or relation to the Super Speedway. This is a 1.5 mile, 1.5, maybe, I don't think it's 2 miles quite. Between 1 and 2 mile, bare bones, as grassroots as you get road course. Literally, between two farm fields. And it was originally designed for motorcycles, and then it was reconfigured in, I think, the mid to late 90s at some point in time, maybe early 2Ks, but it was reconfigured a little bit to be a little more car friendly. And I think there it was. It's a really great track to drive as a beginner because there's like one wall in the entire facility. About the most thing you're likely to to have to do if you went significantly. You'd have to go very far off track to have to do anything more than maybe pick some ears of corn out of your front grill. And the other part about it is, I think, my lap times there are like a minute 8 seconds, minute 7 seconds. So you can turn a lot of laps in a short period of time in a short session, which means you have a lot of repetition and a lot of opportunities to learn, especially if you have, if you have a good instructor, you can, you get a lot of different, quite a few tries at any given turn in the course of a 20-minute session. And then it's a fun place too, because I think they have just enough infrastructure there for it to be kind of a comfortable visit. I think the times I've been there, it's basically some like friends of mine went down. I was like, hey, do you want to put a track day together? Ended up being like $100 for the, $100 for the day. And, they have, there are like restrooms and running water. They have there was even I guess you pay a little bit extra for that to have it open, but they do have like a concession stand on site. So there's, you don't have to go, off site necessarily for food. And they have, so they have all the basics there in a really compact facility that's really kind of entertaining to drive. It's, it's a little rough on tires because it's a lot of it. There are some kind of long steady state sections, which is great, I'm sure, for the motorcycle guys, but for cars, us four-wheel nerds are always just like, the tires. But yeah, that track, as far as larger facilities, I with some asterisks, I would say Carolina Motorsports Park I would probably also put on that list for similar reasons. There are only, I think the difference is there are a couple of places at CMP where you can definitely get in trouble. If you're, but for like a first day, you're probably, right. There's always the dude in the GTR and the car drives itself and they go fast and stuff like that. But, but odds are, like, if you went there for your first event in a Miata or something normal, then you probably are not going fast enough on your first, few sessions to be able to leave the track fast enough to hit anything. I've been through the kink at CMP sideways at about 106 or something like that and managed to keep it on the tarmac and, no harm, no foul at that point. But that's probably some bias because I did some of my first HPDs there. I think my very first was at Shenandoah Circuit which is part of the Summit Point complex. That was kind of jumping in the deep end. MR2 Turbo on Shenandoah Circuit in a monsoon for your first track day. I survived, so did the car. But the CMP, I think, was my second. That felt a lot more relaxed after that initiation, if you want to put it that way. Let's see. Yeah, Newcomb. I haven't been to either Hastings or Raceway Park of the Midlands. I know that they exist or have existed? Question mark. Or one of are those both still in business? Um, I'd have to look at my map, and again, I don't want to make you guys watch me type or stare at another screen, but feel free to let me know. But yeah, no, I think that the other ones that I would say are kind of not really in that in the same area. I know I've been to Hallett. That's kind of the one like legitimately Midwestern track that I've been to. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to I'll have to pay attention to those because it's we're gonna pass through probably Nebraska and or Iowa on the way to Oregon, and I'm definitely doing a big cross country trip like that. Excuse me, and only visiting one track always seems like a waste. So maybe we'll look and see if they have any events that will kind of as an on the way or on the way back. Then I might be able to kind of pick those up as a pick up the spare on the way home. But good to know. Let's see here. Other tracks. I think those are all the track questions I have. Let's see. A couple of NSX questions that I've had. One related to the recent maintenance series was, how much would it cost me to have had all this work done by somebody else? The assumption being that if I took it to a reputable shop, typically reputable independent shop, and had them do the timing belt, water pump, coolant hoses, and then kind of any, dealing with anything they found out while they were in there. I did get some quotes on that. And honestly, the reason that I'm doing it myself is not any sort of, that's not saying anything about or passing any judgment on the local or regional kind of known good NSX shops. It's purely a matter of logistics. I already had the car most of the way apart, so it all of a sudden it's excuse me. It began to make far more sense to me to just follow through than it did to put the car all the way back together from a certain point, only to take it to somebody else to have them take it apart again. But I did get some quotes, and to do all of that stuff, just me not touching anything, was somewhere like $4,000, I think. I think a lot of that was, I'd say a third of that is probably labor. So, cool. Yeah, I've done the back in the day. Probably when I had the first, when I first bought the car, I had the timing belt water pump done not long after, back in 2009, 2010 sometime, because I tried to track down a maintenance history. The person I bought it from assured me that it had been done, but the shop name that he gave me was I was like a gas station or something in New Jersey or something just the side of a gas station, and excuse my horrific impression of people from that region, and certainly no offense, but the answer I got was something like, "Yeah, we did all that. He's a great guy." So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure you did then." So I had the belt and pump redone, and while that was in progress, since it was going to be kind of halfway to having the cams off, I did the LMA update. I put in some of the Science of Speed double O-ring aluminum cam plugs, which I don't regret because those have never leaked, and they're not those were honestly not that much more than the factory like plastic plugs. So, and yeah, the LMA definitely quieted things down a lot. I need to do one of the other things I'll be doing as part of before I put the car all the way back together. I am going to go through and at least check all of the valve clearances, and then we'll see if any of them are out of spec enough for me to warrant doing the adjustment on them. Considering I could get to that, that's far more simple to get to than doing the whole belt job again. But so yeah, I do have to kind of consider that I'm saving myself a healthy tax return by doing it myself. But again, that's no judgment on the people that were available to do it. One of them was able to work me in time-wise, but wasn't able to find parts. The other one was probably 9 cars deep, and so I was going to be on a massive, the waiting list of all waiting lists. Now, granted, being a professional shop, they could be probably done with 6 cars by the time I finish my one, but it is what it is. The other thing I've gotten is what's the Powerade bottle for that's in the engine compartment, which is it's not there right now, but next to my coolant expansion tank, I've had just a Powerade Zero clear, not sponsored bottle with a tube run into it, and that is just it's a what you call that, kind of a redundant overflow for the expansion tank, just in case, because given what I do, if I go to from Tennessee, I could do a track in the southeast at kind of 1,000 feet above sea level, give or take, and on a 100-degree day, and the car wouldn't push any coolant. But if I went and did the same thing at 105 degrees, same high temperature at High Plains Raceway at nearly a mile in elevation, given the lower external pressure, I could end up pushing a little coolant out of the expansion tank if it's exactly full, and I don't want to be that guy. So that's just an attempt to not put any antifreeze on the track, because it's a street car. I run antifreeze in it because I'll drive it in almost all weather. So, but at the same time, I do want to be courteous and careful that I'm not going to hose anybody else who by overheating the car or the car getting a little bit hot and leaving a patch of antifreeze for somebody to find in a braking zone. So I just have that little extra kind of redundant catch can there to make sure I can just I can police that and either put it in the container or, dispose of it appropriately or put it back in, depending on the situation. So that's what the Powerade bottle's for. And that'll probably go back in the car once I finish all this business for the same reason. And then I had, I think this was, I remember who asked this one. This was David from Driver's Therapy. Was asking me, what hurts more from doing the work myself, my shoulders or my back? Well, I'll be honest, it's neither of those things. If I had to pick one ailment, it's probably like hamstrings. Because it's kind of like a constant stretch, leaning over the car and reaching down in. So I'll be up and down like tiptoes and, and kind of full extension, from the backs of my knees. Such that when I kind of stop and step down, I'm like, kind of having to step gingerly for the first couple of times after I've worked on a few, undone a few bolts. But that was an entertaining one. But yeah, no, it's like I said, I just there are times where I have to just throw my abandon any vanity that I might have. I don't feel like I'm a very vain person, but I was like, I'm just, I've got the car up on jack stands. I'm just going to go get a stool because it's got a little 8 to 10 inch tall single step stool. Cause it's like, I'm 5'8" on a good day. So, trying to reach over the car and actually get to something down under, I always end up kind of halfway in between gears, if you will. Like I can reach over the top, but I'm, all down in the engine bay there, or I'm rolling around on the ground trying to reach way up and get something. And, I'm like, nah, it's not worth it. But, yeah, so that was the answer there. The, let's see here, other, general questions that I've had. Oh yeah, no, I had one that I thought was kind of interesting is, wouldn't it have been way easier to just buy a trailer? Kind of generally speaking, why, since I'm going and taking a car to a track, the common wisdom is buy a Miata. The second piece of common wisdom is if you want to go faster on a track, the first thing you should buy is a trailer. Well, that's probably true, but would that really be as interesting? dude trailers his NSX to various tracks versus dude puts buku miles on his NSX, driving it to the tracks, then driving it around the tracks, and driving it back home. It adds a little bit of that hard mode, and there's potentially some, it's slightly increased potential for shenanigans, but in the meantime, it's way less logistical, fewer logistical concerns, simpler logistics, I guess, is probably the better way to put it. And then it's also just easier. So I've secondhand done the trailer thing. So like I said, through my youth, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I used to go to, and I still do occasionally, go to track events with my dad, and he always, trailered a car. Granted, through most of my youth, he was trailering a 1973, I forget, 72 or 73, I'm pretty sure 73, 1973 Di Tommaso Pantera, which is not a car you necessarily want to go and just, take off and drive 500 or 600 miles with the expectation it's going to hold together. Generally reliable, but they have probably one of the worst interior air climate control systems known to man. Not very good road trip cars. Fun, not great road trip cars. But we used to load that thing on a trailer, take it up to that event I talked about towards the beginning of the video in the Poconos, unload it from the trailer, and then go and drive it around. And then that's different cars have taken its place over the years. And there's definitely something to that. Like you can, you're kind of, it's a safety net that, like, okay, if I break the car at the track, which, we did kind of a little bit catch a Ferrari, was it Dino 308 GT4? We a little bit caught one of those on fire at Road Atlanta once. And so it was nice to have the trailer to get that thing home. But but the rest of the time that you're not on fire and having to trailer something home, you're having to account for the logistics for the tow vehicle, carrying around any kind of ramps or stuff you need, carrying around tie downs, and then it's not very easy, and it can be easy, but you have to spend a lot more money for it to be easy to get the car on and off or in and out of the trailer, and then. Do you get the car out of the trailer at home? Where do you store the trailer? I don't live on a farm here, so I don't really have a place to park a big trailer right now. But I think I more just enjoy the experience of driving the fun car on the highway on the road trip. An NSX is actually it is a great road trip car. I'm sure there are better. It's no S-Class or something like that. I can't sit in the back, recline my seat, and and pull the champagne out of the cooler in between, but for what it is a great road trip car, and that's kind of half the fun to me. So it's both kind of enhancing the challenge a little bit, but also it's just simpler logistically. So that's probably, again, a couple of the reasons that I haven't just bought a trailer, but let's see here. Yeah, Cadillac Smith. No, I think a lot of the modern. That's something that's not as it's not as unique, I think, in modern sports cars, because they've just gotten a lot. All the companies, I think, in general, have just gotten a lot better at car since the early 90s. Like the NSX for exotic cars, the NSX, the original NSX, that was kind of it changed the game. Like it took, Ferrari and Lamborghini and to an extent even Porsche to task for, hey, look, we can build an exciting car that also doesn't just suck at car. So, but yeah, no, the modern like pony cars. Heck, you've got, I think you probably option those suckers with like, heated seats. They have a huge trunk, whatever you want, right? But no, I was trying to think if I've tried that in anything else. Not to that extent, But I would say even just from a personal comfort standpoint on the road, if I had left the stock exhaust on the NSX, it would probably be more comfortable even than our like pretty normal Volkswagen GTI. It might be more comfortable than that. I think it's a little bit better damped with the KWs on it, oddly enough, and the seats are better. It doesn't have it doesn't have the heated seats, and I'd say the air conditioner is on par. Especially now that I've resealed the doors, you don't have the humidity intrusion as much. And hopefully, I think I have a workaround in place for sort of modern cooled seats as well. Yeah, that would be the ticket down here. Like everybody talks about heated seats, and I was like, I'm not sure where you people live, but that's what I need. Is like when I had I refinished the seats in the NSX last year, 2 years ago, and no, it was 2019 when I did that. And the one option that I ticked on that was perforated center cards in the seat, just to kind of fight the the posterior moisture quotient. Try and keep that under control a little bit in the summers here, but generally the car's not bad. Yeah, Nukem. I know. I totally agree. Seats in this car, I have not found their equal. It's true. Yeah. No, I don't know. Yeah, somewhere in there, I'm just like, okay, now you're just, now you're just adding features to add features. But I could see that. I mean, there are times that would come in handy. I think probably there are days that I'm sure my wife would probably turn on a heated steering wheel, perpetually cold. So could totally see that getting used. But yeah, no, Nukem, to your point with the seats in the NSX, there's one big gripe I have about the Gallardo as far as like a driving experience standpoint is the seats in that car suck. I mean, suck out loud. They're I think they're fine for like it just feels like you're sitting in a normal car or whatever. It's not you don't feel anything wrong for the first 45 minutes maybe, but over an hour you definitely start to realize how much they kind of compromise the I don't know who they tailor. I don't know who actually fits one of those seats appropriately, but I have to think it's somebody with like short legs and long torso that's really tall. So 6 foot plus person, or to make the lumbar break make sense in there. But the NSX have never had that. Never had any issues with it. It's just been, I can drive for I have driven for swapping seats even 15-hour stretches or more in the NSX and gotten out and been I don't feel crippled. I can still move around and everything. So that's been yeah. I'm not sure I found better ones. I think the S2000 seats are pretty good, but there again, I think it's you got to be kind of a certain physique for those to work well for you. But they're even definitely like they're snug and they're great for like high performance driving. But I don't know. I haven't driven one long enough or ridden in one for a long enough stretch to know if that snugness translates to maybe less comfort on a longer stretch. But yeah, I'm not sure on that one. I think of all things, like fairly inexpensively, my old MR2 turbo seats were pretty good too. They give you enough wiggle room to feel like you weren't you weren't being hugged the whole time. But they were still pretty supportive. Actually, they weren't as good as the seats in the NSX as far as sporty driving. The bolstering on the NSX does a much better job at keeping your butt in place than those seats did. I definitely noticed it. I put a harness bar in my MR2 because I was autocrossing a lot, and I was running on whatever it was at the time, like Kumo V710s, which at that point in time was the hot ticket for our compound tires for autocross. And the harnesses were definitely kind of, I definitely picked up time and consistency having a sort of a derpy harness set up in there versus having to like hold the wheel to keep myself in the seat. And I very rarely feel myself having to do that in the NSX, where I feel like I'm using the wheel for lateral positioning. It's mainly just, I pretty much stay put from the waist down and don't have to worry about it. And then any movement up here is just me being, what you call it, overacting my steering. But yeah. All right, folks. Well, we're about probably 45 minutes of actual stream here. So I'm going to kind of open it up. Any other questions from those of you in chat? And I will answer what I can in the next. I will give it another 5-10 minutes maybe, and then I probably really will go out where I should be, get out to the garage, and actually kind of start finishing that project. Well. When am I going to shave my beard? Well, no, I've gotten my. This is the least of my problems. Let me tell you something about my COVID do right now. I'm about I'm just this side of some kind. I'm just this side of full hippie at this point. Just, that, or I'm just gonna like grow this out more. We'll groom it a little bit, and I'll just start to change my Instagram handle to like NSX Jesus or something. But yeah. I'll try to look over here, see if I had any other questions I pulled from chat. In the meantime, again, if you have anything, feel free to questions from comments rather. I'll see if I can find in if you whatever you put in chat, I'm happy to answer. I kind of scroll down here. I made a little bit of a bulleted list and see if there's anything else that I could see I haven't covered. Okay. Sure. So Nukem asks, as far as seats, when do you feel you need to upgrade to buckets? Well, with the NSX in particular, I think the answer is different from, maybe some other cars. Because I know you can get I think the main thing there is getting the harness, and there's going to be there. I'm not going to get in or go down the rabbit hole of safety system combinations and stuff like that. I think that's up to the individual's risk tolerance. But I think once you get to running full R compounds on the track, with or without aero, I think that's probably the point at which you're going to want to have more support and containment. So I know with like I said with autocross, once I switched over to R compounds on my MR2, that's when I started really having to kind of struggle with staying in the seat. And at that point in time, when you're starting to kind of feel like you end up sitting on the bolster half the time after a pretty aggressive couple of aggressive elements, then it's kind of okay. I need to make sure I'm staying put. And the way you do that is really a harness. You can get kind of halfway there with a good racing bucket, but you also, in most cars, you'll want a good racing bucket to facilitate the proper fit and function of a harness. With the NSX, there is a way, and I think Cedar Ridge Fabrication, or I think they changed their name recently, Cedar Ridge Parts. They have made brackets that go under the seat between the rails that you can mount the sub harness to by just making a slit in the middle of the seat, and you can have that probably done professionally, and it wouldn't look horrific to get the submarine belt where it needs to go. But yeah, that's probably what I would say. Like, so the 2-word answer is, or two threshold answer there is probably R compound and aero. So if you're starting to look at running, maybe not even like the R888, RA1 type tires, but definitely if you start looking at like Hoosiers or whatever it is now, the V720 or the and I think it's like Hankook has a few. Anyway, the DOT slicks, when you start running those things, either in the R or A, like road race or autocross compounds, you're probably going to want to improve your seating situation. Let's see here. How do I deal with no power steering when driving on the track? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is what it is, right? Like, I think the first time I go out in a season and do a track day, I will, definitely, I'm feeling it in my shoulders and, shoulders, and then whatever these muscles are here that, your grippy muscles. And it's not because I death grip on the wheel. It's just to get the fine adjustments. You end up doing that with fingers. So there's a lot of like, context is important here, but you're doing a lot of like small digit manipulation, and that really wears out these muscles. Because the big, you don't have to hold on very tight to get the big motions down, but when you're mid turn and you're having to like just make fine changes, that kind of wears that out. But I mean, I think a lot of the coping mechanism for dealing without power steering, I think my shorter stature helps there because I can sit closer to the wheel. And when you're far away from the wheel, if you're doing your like, Detroit wing over here on the top of the wheel, you don't have a lot of leverage and you're kind of having to do everything like that. But if you're short and you sit closer to the wheel, then you can kind of, you're pushing up and down more so than you're having to do anything else. And that's another thing, I guess, is there was a debate recently on one of the Facebook groups that I'm in about the push versus pull steering. In other words, when you've got your hands at 9 and 3 and you go into, we'll say, I don't know which direction this is going to look like with you watching me because this may be mirrored, but if I'm going into a left-hand turn, am I pushing up with my right hand to, more, or am I pulling down with my left hand to make the turn? And I think the consensus is that you have more leverage and control by pushing than you do by pulling. I mean, you kind of end up doing maybe a little bit of both, especially with no power steering. But that can kind of, some technique can help there, minimize or use the muscles that are the most advantageous to use, and therefore wearing yourself out less because you're not having to work as hard to do the same thing. But seating position is important. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I've done they were making up for a shortened session and they left us out on track for 45 minutes, I think, at Road Atlanta. And I wasn't paying attention because I was trying to chase down some guy in a boosted 944 turbo. I don't know if it was actually a cup car, but it was kind of configured as such. So it's gutted aero slicks. So he was, I was losing him through the turns, but then I was reeling him back on the straight, and there was nothing in it from a lap time standpoint. So I was kind of working hard, and managed to get through that at Road Atlanta, which is a pretty high G track. And it was, again, I felt it the next day, but in the moment, with everything kind of where I needed it to be, it was all right. It probably helps that I run on street tires, so I don't have quite the fight back on the wheel that I would if I was running something more sticky. So yeah, mileage may vary there, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, no, seats are I've considered the bucket seats. I think what keeps me from doing that is that as much as I drive the car on the track, it's just unavoidable that the majority of the driving that I do is on the highway. And I don't think there's a bucket, fixed or otherwise, that's going to be as comfortable on those long highway hauls as the stock NSX seats. And they are pretty supportive. And again, I'm still running on street tires. So I've just kind of kept I've kept everything, all the safety systems basically stock. So I've got it just has what it came with. Like the seat belts, I pay attention to them so they're not, if they ever start getting kind of ratty looking, I'll just put new 3-points in. But then, the problem is once you do that, it kind of depends on a lot of not a lot. I've encountered track day providers and other organizations, track organizations, be that track day or competition, where it's kind of an all or nothing philosophy. Like once you go to a fixed back seat and or a harness, then they also want a roll cage or at least a roll bar. And then it's just this, and then if you have a roll bar in the car, should you really be driving it on the street without a helmet on? So it's made more sense to me from a compliance standpoint to just stick with the OEM restraints and seats and trust that those are going to get, those are designed to get the job done and have passed some kind of, other thing rather than going and try and reinvent the safety wheel, and put myself in some kind of compromise situation either on the street or on the track. Is it ideal? No, but again, I'm not out there, it'd be different if I were still legitimately competing. I did time trial in the NSX for a little while with NASA, and it was fun. Would I do it again? Sure. Am I going to go and ruin the car to make it competitive again? Though, no. If it happens to fall into a class that it's in which it would be competitive, brilliant. But otherwise, I will go and enjoy my DEs with my track day insurance and. So I've kind of, that, or again, like in success, I have, 10 years down the road, I have 1 million subscribers and all that YouTube money, then maybe I'll just make a stunt car, right? Go get some shell of an NSX and J-swap it, stick a cage in it, and do whatever I want for the, for places that I couldn't go otherwise, with a more stock car. But yeah, that's all pie in the sky for now. All right, guys. Well, we've been on for almost an hour. I think I'm going to call it because I need to get out to the garage. Again, I thank all of you for tuning in to this first live stream, and I appreciate you putting up with those of you who were here actually on time. I appreciate you humoring me and putting up with my technical foibles as I figured out this whole thing. I think next time I do this, there'll probably be a next time. This has been kind of fun talking to you guys in real time instead of trying to just get a notification on my phone and then, thumb war my way to some kind of hopefully coherent response. But I do try at this point in time to read all my comments. So definitely leave any. I guess this will go This will go up kind of, it'll appear as a video once I stop the stream, I think, if I've done that correctly. So you'll be able to go back and ask questions if you forgot, or if anybody else watches this since then. If you are watching this after the fact, hello, and feel free to leave your questions in the comments. I will most likely read them and respond. But great talking to all of you guys. In the meantime, thanks again. It seems weird to say that because I'm live, but thanks for watching. I'm Richard. This is Laugh of the World, and I will see you guys all in the next video, if not at the track.